when I became a single mother, I was like, wait, I have my own house now. I get to decide with my daughter how things are going to go. Sometimes we call our house girl house, which is what she said, from the very beginning. She was like, oh, it's a girl house now. And I'm like, yeah, girl house. What does that even mean? But okay, that sounds good. Um, so I feel like I've changed in the way that I feel confident about my decisions as a mother and that I feel good about my household. And I've done a lot of work to sort of separate what he does from what I do and to know that everything's fine in both places.
Mm.
And that's been critical for my mothering to just come to my own sense of what it's supposed to be and what it's supposed to look like.
Welcome to this episode of How It Feels to Be a Mother. I'm your host, Sarah. Today, we meet Amanda, a 47-year-old mother of an 11-year-old daughter. Amanda shares insights about the impact of her divorce during the pandemic, the challenges of co-parenting, and how her experience as a single mother has shaped her approach to motherhood by fostering a deeply connected relationship with her daughter. Together, they focus on naming emotions and open communication, something Amanda consciously prioritized after growing up in a more emotionally reserved Midwestern family. She discusses how therapy for both her and her daughter became an essential part of navigating the emotional complexities of life post-divorce, and the importance of having a support system of friends and fellow moms who stepped up in her time of need. As editor-in-chief at Literary Mama, Amanda shares how working within a community of mothers in that role and for her book of essays from 21 mothers on cesarean birth has shaped her understanding of balancing motherhood and personal passion. Join us as we explore the complexity of emotions along the continuum of motherhood. Hi, Amanda. Thank you so much for being on How It Feels to Be a Mother.
Hi,
I'm
Sarah.
really grateful you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, as you may know, I usually want to have our listeners provide a little context to your story. So it would be great if you could please give us your age, your preferred pronouns, your relationship status, the ages of your child, and their preferred pronouns.
Okay. If I forget, tell me.
I will. I'll prompt you.
I'm 47, she, they pronouns. My child is 11 and feminine pronouns for her.
Okay. And how about your relationship status?
Oh, I've been partnered with another person for 2.5 years.
Okay, great.
And I'm divorced.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, Amanda, how does it feel to be a mother?
um, I think overall it feels really, really good. I have loved well, I wouldn't say every part of it, but I have just really loved watching this person grow, from the moment that she came out and seeing her wonder at the world and her curiosity and her sense of humor. And I mean, it's just been a joy actually to watch her move through all of these stages. And she's 11, so she's getting ready to be an adolescent. And she's experiencing changes just like everybody else in her group. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes, but I feel really good about it.
That's great. Does it feel like you thought it would?
Um, I'm not sure. I know that, when I had her, I was, classified as, what's it called? Advanced maternal age,
Hmm.
which was weird. But um, I think I knew that I wanted to have a child, which is why I ended up having a child. But I didn't have, since I was a child myself, I wasn't one of those kids that was like, I want to have children. And, for a long time, I wasn't sure if I
Hmm.
was going to have a child. But I think I'm a better mother than I would have anticipated. Um, but I also think that a lot of mothers are really hard on themselves. And we have imposter syndrome about a lot of things. So, that kind of leaks into that idea of does it feel like you thought it would? And it's interesting actually that I moved right into am I good at it?
Mm.
Because you asked, does it feel like you thought it would? And immediately I was like, am I good at it?
Mhm.
And so I think that characterizes a lot of our language around mothers. But I think, as far as does it feel like I thought I would, I feel like I'm much more attuned to my daughter's emotions and thinking than I thought would have been possible.
Mm. Why do
So,
you think that is?
um, I think we've always been that way. She calls me, well, since she was a little kid, and she doesn't do this so much now, but she used to call me Pillow. And at first I was like, ugh, pillow, come on, man. But I think, a pillow is soft, comfortable, you lay your head on it. And I feel like we've always had that connection just from the get-go. And I didn't get, I had a C-section and I basically saw her in the air and then she was taken away somewhere while they sewed me up. And so from the very beginning of her birth, I felt like something was taken from me. But
Mm.
as soon as I held her and tried to nurse her, I felt that connection immediately. And that was incredible. But I think one reason that I'm attuned to her emotions so well is because she's very much like me. But I don't want to like project too much. But
Mhm.
I think she's very much like me. But I also think that we've spent a lot of time together just saying how we feel and telling each other that it's okay to have these emotions. So naming emotions, identifying emotions has been really a feature of our relationship, I would say.
Wow, that is very foreign to me. And like only because like I mean that's part of the reason I embarked on this work is because like what am I feeling? I don't even know how to name it. What am I doing to my kids because I'm not in touch with my own emotions. So the fact that you are so that the two of you together are like doing this and have been doing it, that's just so wow. I'm just like processing that right now. That's really beautiful.
Well, I think that I mean, I'm from the Midwest originally.
Me too. From where?
Oh, from Central Illinois.
Okay, Sioux Falls, South Dakota is my hometown.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So I grew up on a farm and I have
Hmm.
a very Midwestern family, like, and also Irish Catholic family.
Hmm.
And so my family is wonderful and I wouldn't call them dysfunctional, but I think that, there wasn't always an emphasis on naming our emotions and talking
Yes.
about them, especially fear and anxiety. And so I think I made a conscious choice to do that. But I also think that, one of the things that really sealed that for us was the divorce. So I started out with a spouse and a partner in this who was the father of my child, and during the quarantine, uh, in the pandemic, he ended up getting together with one of my work colleagues,
Mm.
and so one day he put our child to bed, and the next day he left, and he came back like he's still her dad. And he's a competent dad and all of that, but that was really hard for her.
Mm.
And it was obviously hard for me, and it was pretty sticky. So I went from being someone who was partnered and married to a single mom really quickly. And that really opened up my emotional relationship with her because the way it happened kind of demanded that we talk about our feelings.
Wow. Plus,
Yeah.
I mean, it was a pandemic. You were quarantined. There wasn't not a whole lot else going on, right? There's already a lot of fear and anxiety and stress and all of the other things attached to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember, I don't want to, go too much into her feelings,
Sure.
but I had to have feelings then.
Hmm.
And so I had to find ways to, she was 7. I had to find ways to explain to her clearly, but not crazily, that something had happened,
Hmm.
and that everything was going to be okay, but that I was sad.
Hmm. So you kind of hit on one of the themes that come emerges in a lot of these conversations, which is, how the ways in which we were raised sort of influences how we choose to raise our children. So you had mentioned the Midwestern upbringing, and kind of the overt sharing of feelings is not something that many of us in the Midwest are very comfortable with.
Yeah.
But so it seems that you have somehow kind of turned that on its head. You want to talk a little bit about that?
I mean, I hope I have. I don't know if I have, but yeah, I think, even things like sickness when I was growing up, if somebody was sick, like I still, if one of my parents has a health issue, they don't tell me
Yeah.
for a long time before I find out. And that's really frustrating. Um, and there have been moments with my parents, especially with my dad, who's a very stoic, like in a really calming way, he's stoic. So it's fantastic in that way. But he's not really going to talk about his feelings. But we've had some emotional moments together since I've gone through some stuff in my
Mhm.
adult life.
Mhm.
And so that's really helped our relationship. But I didn't grow up like that. I didn't grow up, telling my dad how I felt about anything. I didn't grow up really talking about what was happening at school or anything like that. But it was also like our generation,
Yeah.
you know. Um, we didn't have access, like our parents didn't have constant access to us. Um, but yeah, I don't remember really talking about a lot about my feelings, but I did have a lot of fears when I was a child, and I actually had night terrors when I was a baby.
Oh no.
I was diagnosed with night terrors, and so that kind of then developed into a lot of fear at night. So I was like the most annoying child in the world to get to bed. So whenever my kid has trouble sleeping, my mom's like, "Yeah, I don't feel sorry for you because it happened every night."
Oh wow.
And so I would say maybe I didn't have a way to talk about those fears, and certainly therapy wasn't something that people did
Mm.
then in my family.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know if that answers your question. I feel like I just kind of went over here,
Yeah,
but
it does. I mean, I guess did you make a conscious choice then to be more emotionally open, vulnerable, connected to your child in the way that you're choosing to raise her?
I did.
Yeah.
I definitely did. Um, and another part of that was my feeling like as soon as, this divorce started happening, I got her with a therapist. I had a therapist. I talked with her therapist, um, who also talked to me about how I was feeling. Um, and I feel like like my therapist is wonderful and so is this other therapist, but I feel like some of the advice that was given about like putting on a positive face or a happy face all the time, or kind of like almost pretending
Mm.
with this other person who traumatized me was really hard for me.
Mm.
And I made a conscious choice to say things like, I feel sad about this to her.
Mm.
And it's okay that I feel sad. and it's not your fault at all, because of course they all think that.
Yeah.
And it's okay for you to feel your feelings. Like it's just going to happen. And that's just part of the process. And I really think that was part of it. And I think the other part of that was in my doctoral program. I was on an interdisciplinary research grant where we were working with youth organizations in Tucson. And I did research with young people who were expressing themselves through slam poetry and other means.
Mm.
And I learned a lot from them about those expressions. And I think that influenced the way that I talk to my own child, because I want her to have a little bit of a different childhood than me.
Okay.
And she definitely does.
So let's talk a little bit about how the feeling of being a mother for you has changed over time.
Okay. How has it changed over time? I think the main thing for me is that I've really embraced being a single mother. It really changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're with this other person, you need to sort of work out how to be parents together. And in my case, I was with a person who likes to be very scheduled and has different ways of parenting than I do. And they're not bad or good. They're just like his ways of parenting. And I really let him sort of run point on that. And I didn't realize that when it was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And when I became a single mother, I was like, wait, I have my own house now. I get to decide with my daughter how things are going to go. Sometimes we call our house girl house, which is what she said, from the very beginning. She was like, oh, it's a girl house now. And I'm like, yeah, girl house. What does that even mean? But okay, that sounds good. So I feel like I've changed in the way that I feel confident about my decisions as a mother, and that I feel good about my household. And I've done a lot of work to sort of separate what he does from what I do, and to know that everything's fine in both places. And that's been critical for my mothering, to just come to my own sense of what it's supposed to be and what it's supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can relate to that so much too. Having my children have two very, very different households.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel like they must have some type of permanent whiplash from just like the
Yeah.
reentry. And so that was something I really had to like sit with myself as well and kind of figure out like, how am I going to run my household? And then what does that look like? How can I help ease the reentry? And kind of manage the drastic differences between the two.
Yeah. And I don't think it's always pretty for
No.
her. Um, because I don't really talk to her father. I do in the way where it's like, here's some business that we have to take care of. But I don't pretend,
Mhm.
like we're buddies, because we're not. And I think the other thing that I've tried to do is keep consistency for her. So we live in the same place that we've lived in the whole time we've been in Connecticut. And her dad has moved a couple of times, and he has a house now with his wife and her stepsister, my daughter's stepsister. And this has been the thing that's been consistent for her. And I've been really adamant about that. And I think that's another way that I've changed, is that I'm doing a lot of things to be consistent for her. Because prior to that, we moved a lot. We were graduate students. We were looking for jobs, so we were kind of all over the place. And I'm like, I'm keeping her here. I'm not moving in with another person. And I've kind of made that promise that, for as long as housing remains affordable, which I'm not sure how much longer that's going to be, we're staying together in this mom house, That's been really important to me.
Mhm. What's your favorite thing about how it feels to be a mother?
What's my favorite thing? Um, I think it's just that we just vibe so well together. I mean, you were talking about like the household whiplash, and I feel like that does happen, but she's just, ready to go with me. There's no, we just take up with each other immediately, and we're just really close with each other, and we like a lot of the same things. And um, what's my favorite thing? I love it when I can see how certain kinds of behavior that I've modeled for her are manifesting in other
Mm.
situations in her life, like that I think are good, you know? And I love it when she uses those lessons and, to move through the world, to move through school every day, to talk with her friends, stuff like that.
Mhm. What concerns you about how it feels to be a mother?
Um, well, I've talked a lot about how we vibe and how we like a lot of the same things, but I'm also really aware that um, sometimes, especially children with two different households, want to please their parents. And so they can be a little more malleable than perhaps they should be.
Mm.
So I'm really concerned about projecting on her. I'm really concerned about projecting on her in that way, like thinking that, she likes something when maybe she's just being agreeable with me. Um, I'm concerned about, like in schooling, I think a lot of it circles around school for me because I didn't necessarily love my K to 12 experience, and she does. And so when I see things happening, like she's 11 now, so there are all of these like girl cliques in
Mm.
her grade, and she doesn't necessarily. This is the way I was too. She doesn't necessarily like connect with any of them. She's just like, there they are, you know? And I remember feeling very sad about that, but I don't want to project that onto her, if that makes sense. Like, she seems okay with it. She has this very practical way of looking at things, which is also very Midwestern.
Yes.
Um, but I just worry about projecting my feelings onto her.
Just maybe a clarifying question. So you said that you felt sad. Did you feel sad because you felt sad when you were her age and in that experience, or did you feel sad for her having that experience now? Or
Oh, I
both,
think
maybe?
both.
Yeah.
Because she looks, but I always have to remember, like, she processes it and perceives it much differently um, than I did when I was that age. And part of it's that she has ways of talking about things that I didn't have
Yeah.
when I was a kid.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Credit to you.
maybe. I don't know. Credit to 2024, I think
I don't
we're
know.
all
There's a
where
lot
we're
of
at.
things we could take away from 2024 too.
Oh, yeah, that's
But just even like, I mean, just like we were saying that you've been so, very emotionally connected and vulnerable. And so just having the language to talk about your emotions and how you're feeling, that's huge. So credit to you.
Thank you.
Tell me what surprises you about how it feels to be a mother.
Um, I think that I feel so comfortable with it. I think we all have a lot of anxiety around motherhood, partially because we're told to,
Yeah.
because we're supposed to be doing everything. And that hasn't wavered historically.
Hmm.
But I'm not as anxious about mothering as I thought I would be. Um, I have been characterized as an anxious person by people in my life, and I'm not sure I'm as anxious as people have said I am. And I think I'm very chill about a lot of things with my kid. She doesn't have a phone. She doesn't have like this constant access to me. And I feel really good about that, actually. And I feel really good that I'm able to have confidence in her. And that surprises me. Not that I have confidence in her, but that I'm able to let go.
Mm. Yeah, particularly in just sort of in this day and age, right? Where sort of, I think everybody is, we're all super hyper connected. So to have that ability to kind of let go and know that, like, and have the faith and the confidence that it's all going to be okay. That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm surprised by that. For sure.
Okay. Yeah. I can understand that. I feel like, I mean, my kids got phones earlier than I wanted to. It was a unilateral decision from the other household. And that was like one more thing to have to manage. But in some ways also it was like, okay, that's also one less thing I have to worry about. Ironically, in one way, and in the other way, it's like, oh my God, now I'm so much more worried about what they have access to and what they're consuming and the influence. I mean, that's something that that all still keeps me up at night. Like, you know, they're almost 16 and 18, and that still is one of my greatest concerns for them.
It's really scary. I mean, because in a moment, someone's life can change.
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot too, because even if she doesn't have a phone, everybody else does.
Yeah. I know for a while, like in my household, we were kind of like, we didn't do like a lot of TV and stuff like that. And we were living abroad for a while, so we didn't necessarily have access to the same mainstream media. But when we moved out to the States, and we like, my kids didn't know who like sort of the superheroes were like this. And they would go to school and they'd be like, you know, who, and they come back to like, what is this thing that these kids are talking about? And I was like, oh my gosh, am I failing as a parent? Like that they don't know who like Batman or Superman or whatever the things are. I'm like, maybe we need to like rethink this, you know? So like slowly we started kind of like having those experiences and exploring that all together, which was also fun in an interesting way, because they were older than just having like naturally been exposed to these types of things like pop culture references and things like that at such a young age. So so in some ways I think that was a really fun way of going about it. But I also do wonder how much it made them feel a little bit like on the outside, like kind of like you were saying, just sort of like not really, just kind of like the odd ones. Not that that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where did you live?
We were in Cairo, Egypt.
No.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I lived there.
You did?
Yes, I lived there. Yeah.
When were you there?
I lived there from 2006 to 2010.
We were there at the same time.
What were you doing?
Well,
This
so
is amazing.
I know my husband at the time is Egyptian American. We were high school sweethearts, and long story short, he wanted to get back to his roots, and so we moved there in '99, and then we were there for almost 15 years.
Okay, where did you live in Cairo?
Muhaddisine.
Okay, I lived in Zamalek for 2 years, and then Mahdi for 2 years.
Oh yeah.
Because I was at American University in Cairo.
Okay, you were teaching, or were you going to school?
I was teaching, and they built the new campus while I was there. So that's why I moved to Mahdi, because it would have been a really long commute. As you know, it's a crazy commute anyway.
It's already crazy.
Yeah,
exactly. Oh, that's so funny. Listen, like, gosh, isn't the world hilarious? I love this.
Hilarious.
Oh,
yes.
wow.
Oh my God. Yeah, you see the I don't know if you can. Whoa, I can't figure out how to point on this. You see this?
Yeah.
That is what they give you when you leave American University, or they used to when you leave American University in Cairo. They give you your name in Arabic calligraphy, like as a gift. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, we have a lot more to talk about other than how it feels to be a mother.
Yeah,
how it feels to be an expat in Cairo, living, in that kind of a really interesting, dynamic culture and society. God, we could do a whole episode on that alone.
I loved it though. I loved it, and I miss it so much.
Me too.
I mean, the culture is amazing. It's just when I came back here, I felt a little lonely.
Mm.
because everyone is so warm in Egypt
Yes, I agree.
and kind to
Yeah.
expatriates and
Yeah.
foreigners. You know, it's interesting.
Yeah. I felt a lot of it. I felt because I was there for so long. And even though we'd come to visit now and again, it was definitely a culture shock to come back to the States. It took me time to reassimilate in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. So, um, I wouldn't change the experience of any of it for the world. I absolutely loved my time there, and and when the time was right, it was time to come back.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Same thing.
Mm.
Yeah. I think I had a lot of I was feeling myself getting health problems there, actually,
Oh, yeah.
from the pollution and
Yes.
all of that. And I have like migraine issues and so that part was hard. Um, but yeah, it was time to come back when it was time. But definitely that culture shock was major.
Mm. Hmm. And then you had your daughter after you came back because you were there.
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
her in 2013.
Okay.
So I moved back, I believe it was 7 months before the revolution.
Oh,
So I was
that was
in
a wild
my
ride.
PhD program. I started it, and one day it happened, right? I was
Hmm.
in my second semester, and I was just glued to Al Jazeera.
Yeah.
So you were there.
Yep.
Oh my God. Wow. And I had all these friends who were there
Yeah.
and all of these students, and
Yeah.
I was keeping up with them on Facebook, and then they shut off
Yeah.
Facebook. And
God.
so I had no idea what was happening.
Yeah.
Then I had students who were studying abroad that semester, so I was keeping in touch with them because they couldn't get a hold of their families. It was really something. I don't know how I finished any of my classes that semester.
Yeah. I don't know how any of us, I mean, we just carry that trauma.
Yeah.
Frankly, I mean, there are millions of us who were there and who had our own very unique experiences.
Yeah.
Uh, that was that was something that I could
Mhm.
again a whole entire episode just
Yeah, this
around
is
those like
going way off
13
track.
days, yeah, of
Yeah.
the Arab Spring as they call it now. So,
Yeah.
um, but yes, so back to how it feels to be a mother. Everyone enjoyed that little aside. We may pick this conversation up and you can hear all about like how it feels to be a woman in
Yeah.
Egypt, in Cairo, right?
Very interesting. Yes.
So much to unpack there for
Yeah.
sure.
Yep.
And I would say also specifically an American woman, because there are a lot of preconceived ideas and stereotypes related to American women specifically
Mhm.
in many countries in the world. To be very clear,
Yeah.
not just Egypt
Right.
and not just Cairo as a city. So, okay. Anyway. And now
Yeah.
back to your regular programming.
Okay.
Amanda, are there people in your life with whom you talk about how it feels to be a mother?
Yes, I have a group of friends here, who were around when, I was quarantined and my husband left.
Mm.
And they just like I had known them for a year and a half. And they just, what's the word? They circled around me
Mm.
and became my comfort, my next door neighbor. Um, and then people who are in the neighborhood, all who have children who are about the same age as my daughter. And so I have a really strong community of people who have supported me, um, and who, left groceries on my doorstep
Oh.
and would take my kid, would take her in a heartbeat if I needed them to, um, and just have really supported me. And none of them are from this part of Connecticut, if they are from Connecticut. Most of them are from other states. So it's like this group of people who came in from outside.
Mm.
Um, I think I talk with my mom a lot more about what it means to be a mother. So I'm pretty close with her about that. She hasn't gone through the same thing. Like she's been married to my dad for over 50 years. And
Wow.
but when my ex-husband left, she came and stayed with me for almost a month until I had to tell her to go.
Oh, wow.
And everybody else in my family was like, go home.
Mm.
Because she was really absorbing a lot of the sadness and
Mm.
she needed to get away from that.
Hmm.
Um, and so I don't know, how I would have fared with any of that without all of these moms around me or with my own mother coming. And I think single mothers are definitely my jam because we get each other.
Yeah.
I know you talked with Jacinda Townsend,
Mhm.
and we've grown really close in talking about what it's like to be single mothers, and her situation is much different than mine. But we get each other,
Mhm.
and we feel similarly about, when we feel like we fail or when we're angry, at what it means to be a single mother. Like, I
Yeah.
get super angry, for example, about the fact that I had a two family income, or not two family, sorry. What's the word? Oh, double
Dual
income.
income. Yeah.
Thank
Mhm.
you. And then all of a sudden that's gone.
Mm.
It's just gone.
Mhm.
And, I don't get alimony, and we worked, it's basically, I have her a little bit more, but I don't get child support. So like, um, it's, stuff like that where every once in a while I just get pissed about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people like Jacinda and other single mothers are people who really get that.
Mhm. Yeah. That community is so crucial. I had as we kind of talked about, we'll go back to Cairo for just a second, but both of my kids were born in Cairo, and
Oh my
I
gosh.
didn't,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, and I
You had a
didn't
C-section in Cairo.
two C-sections,
Two
yeah,
C-sections in
yeah,
Cairo.
yeah.
Wow.
Um, Yeah, go to Postpartum Unfiltered, you all, the podcast,
Oh.
because I just did an episode talking about my kind of both postpartum experiences.
Mhm.
So I don't know when that's going to come out, but yeah, but check out Postpartum Unfiltered. It's an awesome podcast and so much synergy with the work that we're doing here on how it feels to be a mother.
Mhm.
Really unpacking the complexity and just depth and breadth of emotions around that postpartum experience specifically. So
Mhm.
okay, another aside. Back to our back to our programming. But yes, so I didn't have that community that I really sort of wanted, or actually, I didn't even know that I didn't have it
Mhm.
until many years later when I moved back to the States, and now I have a community. And some of my best friends were talking about like when their kids were so small and they had like all these like play groups and these like
Mhm.
like just the neighbors that would all come together and all kids at the same age. And it never dawned on me that that's a thing that
Mhm.
people have and people do. And I talk about feeling lonely.
Yeah.
That really hit me hard because it's like you don't even know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so that's also part of the reason I feel compelled to do this specific work with how it feels to be a mother, because I'm hoping that we can create a community also for those who maybe don't feel that they have one, or maybe just aren't hearing the stories or the voices or the emotions that
Yeah.
they're experiencing, just so that they know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about how it feels to be a mother for you that you'd like to share?
Um, I was thinking about one thing that I didn't mention before is that I also have a community of mothers in Literary Mama, which I'm
Mm,
the editor in chief for, and it's been it's been really. I mean, we have mothers from so many walks of life and so many age groups, and who are completely volunteering for this magazine, and I get to see a lot of different approaches to how they're mothering and how they value stories about mothers. And I get to think a lot about what it means to have a group of mothers who are volunteering and what can I do as the person who's sort of organizing this to think about how to help them not overdo it, because that's
yes.
how
Yeah.
a lot of moms do everything.
Hmm.
They just completely burn themselves out. And we actually went on a pause for several months with Literary Mama, and we're going to publish again in January, but um we just put the brakes on some stuff. And one of the things that I've been really adamant about is we have to remember that we're volunteers. And every time we come up with an idea, we have to think about how much labor like your idea is going to to translate to? And then how much labor is that going to translate to everybody else? And is it worth it for you in terms of your passion for this idea? I'm sure you feel the same way because of what you're doing. It's
Yeah.
like, this is time and energy, and it's really important. So that puzzle is something I think about a lot as a mom, and especially with the people who are working for this magazine.
Yeah. And it's not even just like the physical labor, right? Or like the mental labor. It's the emotional labor that goes along with these stories and the courage and the vulnerability it takes to share these stories. That's something else that I think I think that we underestimate.
Yeah. Agreed.
So if people want to know more about Literary Mama, they go to
literarymama.com.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah.
And you also have a book too, right? You're an author.
Yes. Yes. I have a collection that I co-edited with Rachel Moritz, called My Cesarean. And it's an anthology of essays by mothers who have had cesareans. And there are 21 essays in there, and they're very different from one another. So as far as I know, and this was the case when it was published, it's the only book that is focused solely on C-sections. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a lift too, right? The physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual lift, the vulnerability that comes with that. Yeah. Where can we find that book if we want to pick it up?
It's often in the parenting section at Barnes and Noble. And it's the Experiment Press, so you can get it from their site. You can get it from pretty much anywhere online. And there's an audio version, an ebook, and the print version.
That's great. Give us the title again.
My Cesarean, 21 Mothers on the C-Section Experience and After.
Wow. Those are such important stories for us to share. And when we were talking about this just a little bit before we started the recording, you yourself had mentioned just how therapeutic it was to kind of have those conversations and share those stories with one another.
Yeah, it really was. And I think, at the end of the day, my experience with a C-section was fairly mundane compared to some of the experiences that you see in this book. And it helped me really situate, like just how to process it for myself. Yeah.
That's the very
feel
beginning.
Connected.
Feel connected. Yes. That community, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the very beginning of how it feels to be a mother. And then the continuum that goes along with it. So
Yeah.
Oh, Amanda, I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much I'm so excited to continue our conversation, actually. We have so much to talk about.
Yeah. That's so weird. That's not, I mean, I know that a lot of Americans have lived in Cairo, and so you're going to find people, but it's just phenomenal that this happened. So, yeah.
I don't believe in coincidences. So there's a reason here. We're gonna pick this up. So stay tuned, everyone. Amanda may be making another appearance on how it feels to be a mother, and we'll make sure to include links to your book and to Literary Mama when this episode gets out there. So thanks again, Amanda, for our chat. I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks so much, Sarah. It was good to meet you.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on this podcast, including those of the host and guests, are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of any entity they represent. Appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The content presented is solely for general informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. The use of information provided on this podcast or materials linked from the podcast or website is at the user's own risk. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical or mental health condition they may have, and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.